Hey guys, in this lesson we're going to deploy some updates to our Elastic Beanstalk environment using a code pipeline. So we're going to create a code pipeline, we're going to use AWS CodeCommit, and then we're going to deploy through to AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So what's going to happen is we have our developer here who is going to push code updates to AWS CodeCommit. The pipeline will notice those changes, the updates to the code, and then push that code through to Elastic Beanstalk deployment, pushing it right through to our environment and updating our environment with the updates to the code. So now our developer can always make changes using the code base in Git, push and commit those changes up to CodeCommit, and the deployment goes right through to the application. Back in the AWS Management Console, I have my Elastic Beanstalk application running. And if I click on the domain name, it just takes me over to this page, which is green on the left and kind of dark on the right hand side. Now we're going to make some changes through code updates and code commit. First thing to do is head over to Google and we're going to find some code from AWS. So search for Elastic Beanstalk sample Node.js code. And that should take you to this page, tutorials and samples. I'll add it to the lesson as well so you can download from there. And what we want to do is come down here to where we find node.js.zip and simply download that code. So we're going to make updates to that code in a moment. What we want to do next is I'm just going to close, in fact I'll leave that open so we can refresh it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to open AWS Cloud Shell, and we're going to use Cloud Shell for the rest of this exercise. So we're going to have Cloud Shell. That's going to be where we're going to commit our changes to our Git repository. But firstly, we need to set up that repository, and our Git repository is going to use CodeCommit. So CodeCommit is AWS's Git compatible code repository service. In CodeCommit, and note that we are now in with all the developer tools. I've opened CodeCommit, but you can see the code build service, code deploy, code pipeline. They're all related. So what we need to do is create a repository. Let's just call this my node app, and I'm going to create. That's really all we need to do to create the repository. We can then use the clone URL, and we're going to clone using HTTPS, and that's how we're going to clone it down to Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell will have the Git client installed by default. Now, if you choose to do this on your own computer and you've installed the Git client, you will also need credentials. So you'll have to go to your user account, and what you want to do is go to security credentials here, scroll down to where it says HTTPS Git credentials for CodeCommit and generate some credentials. And then when you try to clone your repository, it's going to ask you for that information. Okay, I don't need that because I'm going to use Cloud Shell. So I've copied my clone URL to my clipboard. Let's go to Cloud Shell. And hopefully this is nice and clean. Okay, I can get rid of that file just to clean things up. And then what I'm going to do is run git clone and put in the URL. Okay, so it's cloning that into a local folder. And in fact, this has asked me for a username. It didn't do that before. So let's go back to IAM. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some new credentials for myself. So you can see this in action. So we go to security credentials, HTTPS Git credentials. I'm going to take the username here. We come in, pop that in, and then it's going to have a password for me as well. So let's copy that password, come back to Cloud Shell, and then paste that in. Okay, and it says you appear to have cloned an empty repository. That's not really an error, it's just factually correct. So let's change to the directory, and of course there's nothing in here. But now this is a Git directory, so we can see if we run git status, there's no commits on branch master. What I need to do now is upload from the actions menu. I'm going to upload a file, and I'm going to go to my downloads, and there I've got this node.js.zip. That's the one we just downloaded before. So let's upload that one. And that's uploaded straight to the home folder. So if I change back up again, we should now see the node.js.zip. So what I'm going to do is run unzip node.js.zip -d and then the application directory. And now if I change into that directory, we just clear the screen so you can see more easily, and run ls, we've now got these files, and if we run git status, it's going to tell us that these are untracked files. So what we can do is we're going to make an edit first, and then we're going to add and commit these files and then push them up to the repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Nano tool to edit the index.html. And I'm going to come down a little way So I'm going to scroll past that first reference to color, which we can see here, to the next one, which is the background color here. And we're going to change basically the background color. And what we're going to enter is 00, 44, F. And then I'm going to Control X, type Y to save. And that's saved my file. So I've changed the background color in the index.html file. Now let's run git add with a dot to add all the files. And then we're going to run git commit -m and put in a message, initial commit. And then we're going to run git push. Now you might get an entry like this. It's saying that the author identity is unknown. Please tell me who you are. And it's saying that you should run this. And you can supply your email address if you wish to, or you can literally just add this in as it is. I'm just going to run those two commands to just tell it a certain name. And in fact, what's happened here is we need to come back to the commit because the git commit command actually failed before the git push. And then we'll run git push. Okay, now it's asking for those details again. So you want to make sure you keep a note of these. I've got them up here. So I'm going to add in my username, add in my password, and now it's going to push up the data to our repository. So if we come back to the repository here, let's just select our repository, we can now see that we have a series of files. Okay, so we've pushed that code up to our repository. Now, of course, it has not gone out to our application yet because we haven't created a pipeline to push those changes through to the Elastic Beanstalk environment. So on the left-hand side, we're going to select CodePipeline, click on Pipelines. We're going to create a new pipeline, and I'll call this My Node App. Leave the defaults for V2 and superseded execution mode, and then we're going to allow it to create a new service role for us. Scroll down, click on Next. Now we need to choose our source provider. Of course, that's going to be CodeCommit. So choose CodeCommit, select your repository, and then select the master branch. Click on Next. This is where you could use CodeBuild to build and check your artifacts, perhaps build the deployment files or check the code. In this case, we can skip the build stage. Click on Skip again. For deployment provider, this is where you could use something like CodeDeploy or CloudFormation. But there's a direct integration with Elastic Beanstalk. So we're going to choose that option, select our application, and select our environment, and then click on Next. And that's all we need to do, scroll down and create the pipeline. Okay, so this has dumped us on this page here, where we can see that it's already identified some changes in CodeCommit, so that's in progress, and it's going to push those changes through to Elastic Beanstalk. That's now succeeded, so now it's moved from the source stage to the deployment stage, and that's going through to Elastic Beanstalk. If we come back to Beanstalk, click on Events, we can now see that we have an updated event. This is actually happening right at this point in time, so it's deploying the updates. And if I click on the link, now it's blue. Okay, it used to be green. So now we can see that we've made a change to our code and it's pushed that code through to production. Let's go back to Cloud Shell. And I'm going to clear screen again. Let's nano the index file. And let's just change something else and then push this through. So we can see now it happening in real time straight after I've made the update. So perhaps rather than congratulations, I'm going to change this message to hello Neil. And again, I need to run through a few commands here. So we're going to run the git add. We're going to add the git commit -m. And then I'll write a message, edited index, and then git push. And of course, it's going to ask us for the username and password each time. So I'll add this in, add the password, and push that through. So now if we come back to our pipeline, we should see this update very quickly. So just keep an eye on, and you should see this change any second now. And in fact, we can see it already happened before I even came back to the page because the message here, edited index, is the latest message. So that's going straight out to the Elastic Beanstalk deployment. If we come back to Elastic Beanstalk and refresh, there we go. It's updated very, very quickly. So that's it. Now we can push updates through CodeCommit using the Git client, and that's going to push the changes all the way through to our application via the code pipeline. Okay, so I have finished with this particular lab. So what I'm going to do is just close out of here. We'll come back to our pipeline. We can delete things in here. It's not going to cost you anything when it's not actually running, but feel free to go back, delete your repository and your code pipeline. The way it works in Beanstalk is we need to come in and terminate the environment. So remember, we have applications, and within the application we have environments. So within each application we can have multiple environments. So when you come in and terminate an environment, it's not actually going to delete the application. You need to come and do that separately. So we'll come back to the environment here. I'm going to terminate the environment. And once that's terminated, if I wish to, I can then delete the application as well as the environment.